like a circle in a spiral, like a wheel within a wheel, never ending or beginning, like the circles that you find in the windmills of your mind.
This segment is sponsored by Debonaire Cigars. Visit stogiegeeks.com/Debonaire for a list of retailers who carry Debonaire. Buy some today and get a little more Debonaire. Welcome back, everyone. This is our Debonaire Ideal segment for this evening. We're going to talk about recommending cigars to friends. Kind of interesting topic. Well, we may have talked about this before, but I wanted to keep it very specific. As I was just at a security conference where we had a table and we promote both shows anytime we go to to a show. A lot of people smoke cigars in computer security, whereas the other kind of industry that we overlap with. And it's interesting to talk to my friends in security about what cigars they smoke, and then I've got these tactics that I kind of size up what kind of cigar smoker they are and make certain recommendations to them. And recently was kind of interesting. And Will, I'm sure you've experienced this before, where you've got someone who's a regular cigar smoker, or they come to the lounge all the time, and they ask someone, whether that be the retailer or whether that be a friend, hey, I'm feeling adventurous. I want you to recommend 5 cigars. You kind of know what I like to smoke already, like choose 5 cigars. And their experiences vary, Will. Sometimes they're like, wow, those 5 cigars really sucked. I don't like any of them. And all the way to, wow, those were really awesome. I'm going to work them in my regular rotation. What's the difference in those recommendations, Will?
In terms of
yeah, like how do you know whether to make the right recommendation or the wrong recommendation? Because it seems to me it goes either way, and you definitely want to avoid making the bad recommendation, but it happens sometimes. What is that all about?
Yeah, I mean, look, if you're going to ask someone to be adventurous, right, what I would say is you still want to go on some safer ground. So you don't want to come up with this cigar that you would say only satisfies a particular profile. So I would go for something that that maybe some people around you, it may not be as well known a cigar, but it's something that that you've seen enough people lift up and smoke. It's a cigar that moves enough in the retail shop. That right. I think would be the best recommendation to do. If you're going to be like if you're going to pick something out of left field, that's where you're going to get in. That's where you're really going to get into trouble where it sucks. For example, I was just talking about last week a Peruvian Puro. All right, that is not something unless someone comes to me and says, I want something completely off the radar. Right. That's not what you're gonna pick for them. And
the higher price cigars are tough too. I mean, you have to factor price into it as well. If you want someone to really like it and latch onto it, because I think there's like classes of smokers that, if you tell them that a cigars are $20 or $30, they're not going to like it because they're like, I can't smoke this all the time. So even if they do like it, they're not going to like it because that price point is just so far outside of their realm that it's not going to work for them.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because they're not going to go back and smoke it again. Unless it's just something like a Padron or a Davidoff, which they're kind of going to, I'd say, companies like Fuente, those are going to be the exception to the rule.
Yeah, but a lot of people don't like Opus X. It's not in their wheelhouse.
It isn't, but I find Añejo tends to be more in people's wheelhouse.
Absolutely. I think that's a more generally acceptable kind of flavor profile that appeals to a wider audience, whereas Opus X is a lot more narrow.
Right. I would agree with you on that. Same with, believe it or not, I would put, a lot of the Davidoff white label, I might put that in a different wheelhouse because
it is.
Maybe
it's light, yeah.
It's light, and maybe people have been smoking more Nicaraguan blends lately, and it's just something that if you're not used to that, it's going to be very different.
Now, it's interesting, a brand, this is the Debonaire Ideal segment, a brand like Debonaire, I would always recommend to people, whether they're just getting into cigars or the experienced cigar smoker. I think Phil has created his own wheelhouse that appeals to a large range of smokers.
He's put a path in place, and it's literally, with First Degree, it's kind of the entry point.
Right.
And it's I call it the appetizer. You know, you kind of go with the first degree in there. And then I'd say the Sagita is that second step where
Yep.
it's really kind of leading you into the door there. And then right after Sagita, I think you have some choices to make. Whether you want to go Toro, Bellicoso, and if you could find a Salomon, you know, or certainly you have those other options there. But I would,
Yeah, it's interesting. Well, you got a stogie geek or someone who's a seasoned cigar smoker, and maybe doesn't like those larger cigars. You give him one of Phil Salomon's, man. You're on point because it's not a laborious chore to smoke one of Phil Salomon's. It smokes so wonderfully. It's just an excellent choice.
Yeah, and then certainly you have the Maduro and the natural. So if you know some, you know, you
Right.
can go either. You know, if someone is not a Maduro smoker, you know, you have the Habano there, which is really good. And I think each of those, I lean towards the Maduro, but certainly I love the Bellicoso and the Habano. I love the whole Habano line. But you know, so you have some good choices, and you know, so I think Debonaire, you know, it is the Debonaire ideal, but he has succeeded in creating a really good line. Again, that's something for everybody thing.
I would also say that if you had to balance price point in an appealable flavor profile to a wide audience with, you know, a really good cigar, construction is an important component. Fuente is a pretty safe bet when recommending to people. If they haven't had Fuente or they haven't tried a certain line of Fuente, dude, you're pretty safe, man. Like, because you can go Don Carlos, you can go what is the Magnum? It's the Magnum series?
Yep, the Magnum.
Yeah, Magnum series. You can go Hemingway. And they have so many different, they appeal to so many different palates at a good price point with outstanding flavor. And, you know, that's been one of my staples to recommend to people that haven't maybe tried Fuente or certain Fuente blends.
You know, their Candela is one out. If someone has not tried a Candela, I usually will go either to them or La Flor because they're more regularly available Candelas are great options and they're not going to break the bank if someone wants to experience what a Candela is. And I tend to find it only in March where people want to smoke it. But I do find people want to try Candela to see what it's all about.
I also find Tatuaje to be a brand that I'm kind of surprised there's a lot of people that aren't Tatuaje fans. I think we've had the benefit, Will, or at least I have, you know, I've been really close to a retailer that's carried Tatuaje for a long time. And I was kind of surprised as to the number of people that are like, I've never had a Tatuaje. And the casual cigar smokers that are like, you know, I smoked the Romeo and Julietas, I smoked some Rocky Patel, and I'm like, you got to try Tatuaje. And to us stogie geeks, that's like a staple for us. But for the more casual cigar smoker, they're like, oh, that's like a boutique brand to them. And I'm like, no, you got to try, you know, this Tatuaje or that. And they're like, wow, this is really good. And their price points are very reasonable. And they've got, again, that kind of wide range of flavors. They don't have anything, I would say, maybe aside from the Cabaguan that's really mild, but they've got a pretty good range of flavors.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, Paul, because my buddy John Partlow worked at a local shop, and they brought in Tatuaje for the first time. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of guys, I'd say, in their 50s in this shop. And they just had no clue about Tatuaje.
Yeah.
And John took the time that night, knowing what all these guys smoked, and he was able to find something in that Tatuaje line. And I don't think he really disappointed many people with what he steered them towards that night when they launched it. You know, and I think that's important when you have a newer line, if you're a retailer. Launch it the right way, you know, and try to look at what your smoking audience is and try to work it that way. Because they brought a lot of Tatuaje in when they launched it.
Mm-hmm. I think Romacraft, too, that does really well for Mr. J's Havana Cigar Club. That's a fantastic line as well. It's got the full spectrum. They've got some fantastic cigars. I think smaller cigars, too, especially when you're asking people to try those new lines. Romacraft has a lot of those short Robustos, a lot of those smaller sizes, which really appeal to people trying a new blend. You know, they want to be committed to something like a Churchill maybe if they're trying something new, so having those smaller sizes. I really want to come back to the Romacraft Connecticut. I want to try that again. People have been telling me that I need to come back to that and try it again. So I want to seek some of those out. They've been sold out forever in the local shops around here. So, you know, I definitely want to try more of those.
Yeah, and like I said, I just got my shipment from Mr. J's of the Neanderthal, so I just had Stogie Santa send me some of those. So if you have someone who wants to, I actually picked some up for a couple of guys who I smoke with locally, telling them this is the strongest cigar I've had in quite some time, and I'm going to put them to the test since they came to see what they think. So again, they go from that mild part with the Connecticut all the way up to this powerhouse Neanderthal.
Yeah. Well, what do you recommend? Well, like, what do you give out of your own collection, Will, when you got people that come that aren't like seasoned cigar smokers? They smoke a cigar every once in a while. What do you give them out of your own collection?
Usually, I always start them off with an EPC, an EP Carrillo New Wave Connecticut.
Yeah.
Very safe bet. Very flavorful. I probably go with that the new Reserva as well, but probably after the New Wave.
Yeah. Because the Reserva has a little kick to it.
The Reserva, yeah, definitely has some kick to it. And it's kind of what I say that next step. Okay, you like this now try it in something a little more amped up. See if it, and it's not going to still knock you down, but it will have you a little more. Lately, I've really been recommending, because I have some of them, are the Flor de Silvas that we've talked about in those Connecticut's on the show.
Oh yeah, Flor de Silvas. I smoked through all of mine that you sent me.
I think I could send you some more because they sent us some, but I've smoked a lot of them.
That's like an unbelievable blend. There are some sizes and blends hidden in that line that are just like out of the park home runs, dude.
And here's what I love about that line. Why they're different blends in different sizes too. So people can try to find their pick there. I'll talk about it. Another one in the Stogies of the Week, the New World Connecticut by AJ Fernandez.
Yeah.
I'll talk more about that, but that is a ideal introductory cigar if I've ever seen one. And it's no shortage of flavor.
Now, it's interesting. I talk with a lot of people. Beer is a big thing, especially here in New England. I mean, all across the world, right? But there's a lot of boutique beer, a lot of breweries here in New England, and which have breeded a culture of people who love beer. And the Quesada Oktoberfest, of course, is blended to pair with a beer. And when I tell people, I'm like, dude, that's not a gimmick. I'm like, it really does pair very well with a beer. And if you like a little stronger cigar with a little more body, and you like a beer, like that's the one you want to pair together with with a beer. So,
yeah, it's an intangible, is what I'll just say. That it just if you're drinking a lager or a stout, something like that, you there's something intangible about that Oktoberfest, the way it was blended, where it just, as you're sipping the beer, the cigar just kind of gels with it. It's just hard to explain.
And is that a Dominican Chabao wrapper? Is that how you say that?
Cibao.
Cibao wrapper.
Yep.
Yeah, and that wrapper, I think, embodies that flavor component that I think would pair well with like a Chimay, Belgian, a dark style Belgian ale. The Chimay Blue, especially. I forget exactly, what are the components of that beer, but it's a blue label Chimay. You serve it in a nice big round, almost like a wine glass. That particular beer, especially with that Quesada Oktoberfest, is a winning combination.
I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, so I had to make a lot of recommendations lately. So, I think we covered a lot of them. So, and I'll talk about when I was in the next segment. Actually, I've got a little kind of teaser. I'll give you a teaser now that we visited a cigar lounge in Boston, an iconic place. And, I had to kind of make recommendations and decisions about what we're going to smoke and things like that. So,
yeah, I've gone through that many a times as well. And I always find you have to be somewhat prepared for that.
Yeah. Yeah, you really, I mean, as the representative Stogie geek, right, people are going to turn to you for recommendations, and you got to be prepared to make those, to be debonair about it. You want someone to have a positive experience with a cigar. You also want to keep in mind that if they're not a cigar smoker, they may not finish the whole thing either. So you got to kind of factor in size and price into that decision as well. You and I, we smoke a lot of cigars in the week, and we smoke them all down to the very end for the most part. But not everyone's going to do that. So you want to make sure that you factor that into your, kind of recommendation for that person as well.
Yep, no, I totally agree. What about like if you're going to go for, and I know we could say Padron is the answer for this, so I'm not looking for Padron. Is there that one pricier cigar that you would recommend that, maybe that someone wouldn't buy that you'd want them to smoke?
I mean, certainly Davidoff, Padron come to mind in the higher end on that spectrum. Also, and I'll talk about what my recommendation was, Will, on the higher end for my friends.
Okay.
I'll talk about that next because I did choose something somewhat on the higher end for my friends. So.
No, that's I think that's a fair comment as well. I still, I keep them in my locker over at Union Cigar, the Cien Años Maduros, because but people know that's like a legendary cigar, and when I put it into their hands, I'll be honest, it's missed sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's hit more than missed.
Right.
I
think that cigar has a lot of strength. And if you're not prepared for that, it cannot be an experience that is so positive as we've had with it.
Yep. I would definitely agree with you on that.
Cool. Well, that rounds out Debonaire Ideal for this week. Stay tuned. We're going to come back with our Stogies of the Week.